Slide. Lovely, thanks, Pat. Um, can I share my screen and my co-host? Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
lovely. All right, lovely. I'll just get the slides up. Slideshow. Okay. I won't labour the point with a lot of this. The slides will go online on our webpage later this week. All of the application documents will be going on today because the fund opens today. Um, and you can get in touch with questions, but it's hopefully it's pretty clear. So yeah, if you can display your name and organisation, it'd be useful. This has been recorded, so if you don't want to be on it, feel free to turn your camera off, and also feel free to ask questions. So what we're going to do is we're just going to explain what the fund's about, the eligibility criteria, what you can spend your money on and you can't, and the application process, and what you'd be expected to do afterwards. So first of all, while you can have a look at the agenda. My name's Stu McGrory. I run Vola, which is a consortium of voluntary sector skills and employment providers. We've done loads of work in the digital inclusion space over the last 10 years. Um, and we've been commissioned, selected, whatever you say, by the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority to run this grants programme, which we've actually been running since the beginning of 2023. It ended in 2025 March originally, but we've got some extra money for like an extension year this year, that runs until next March. So what we're going to do today is just what I've just said, tell you about the fund, what you can spend your money on, who's eligible, some of the sort of complexities, which are and they're not too much of a headache, um, because it's public funding. And then look at the application process and the timescales and stuff you need to submit. So it's funded through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, you'll have probably heard of, which replaced the previous like ESF and ARDF, that European sort of funding. There's been a little change to it since the previous 5 rounds that I'll mention now. But so what the fund about, primarily the thing we want to fund is computer facilities that the public can use. Really, we want to be funding new ones in places where there's not a lot there, in terms of places people can go to get online, uh, you know and in highly sort of digitally excluded and deprived areas. But it doesn't exclude applying for other areas, but by any means. But all things being equal, if you know people were applying, everything was equal, there were great applications, and one was for the most affluent area of the city region compared to the most deprived and digitally excluded, we'd be likely to fund the one in the more deprived area. So new ones, but also it can fund improvement or expansion of existing public facing IT facilities. So we can fund like, improving broadband connectivity, um, updating poor quality, sort of old obsolete kit. You'd need to explain and demonstrate, you know, that it is no use, and why you need it. Um, but it can also increase capacity. So you might have a computer suite, a decent one, but you just can't keep up with demand, and you want to buy some more computers, or you might want to upgrade your broadband because it's struggling because there's so many people using it. Um, so when we say facilities, yeah, it can be like an open access computer suite, if you want to call it that, where everyone and anyone can drop in, or it can be an organization who's creating one, or creating computer facilities, internet access for their particular target group. So it's not just like funding an open access, public access internet cafe type thing. Although they're great, yeah, we do want them, but it could be you work with a particular group of young people, or maybe women, it could be anything, it could be for your target group. But it's for the kit and the connectivity. It's not for funding um, delivery costs of IT training, or anything else like that. So that's the primary purpose. The secondary one, which has been introduced in this funding round across the city region, having been trialled in a few boroughs previously, is that we will fund what we're calling general digital connectivity improvements to community buildings. So those kind of improvements where you don't actually need a public access computer suite or facility. It could be to improve your broadband and your connectivity in that in terms of your service offer, or so people can use public access Wi-Fi, things like that, without needing the computer suite. So two dead important things. Community building means somewhere where people go to access services and activities, not your office. If you've just got an office that is solely an office that people don't go to, then we can't, we're not going to fund them. Um, if your office is in the place where people go to access, that's absolutely fine. But if you just got a standalone office, we're not funding sort of upgrades to them. And the term general connectivity improvements means the installation of a new broadband line or an upgrade to a faster broadband package if it's currently poor and can't cope with the internet traffic that you have. Or it could be like internal networking and Wi-Fi improvements to get the most out of your broadband, because it's not always the broadband line coming in that's the problem. It's very often what you've got going on inside that doesn't transfer that broadband speed around the building, which is an important thing to think of. And I'll touch on that later about the technical sort of advice that we're going to provide. So if you're applying for this secondary sort of purpose, um, you can't just apply, we want to load of new computers for staff. It, any computer requests or funding for computers got to sit alongside a request to improve your broadband or your internet connectivity. And you need to argue the case well as to why you need the computers. The reason for this is one of our primary funding targets is around improved connectivity. And the definition of that within the UKSPF outcomes, our sort of rules, it's about improving broadband speeds and internet speed kind of thing. It's not just about funding loads of computers for staff and stuff. And even on the public access side of things, we want as many around improving the actual connectivity as much as just buying computers. Because in the previous 5 rounds, a lot less people applied for the connectivity, the broadband element, than applied for computers. A lot of them applied for both. Do you know what I mean? But we do want to look at that improving connectivity, and on this general improvement side, it's got to include that. It's not just about funding computers for staff or volunteers. So to labour that point a little bit, and just want to make people aware. So yes, you can apply for that. That's fine. You can apply again, whether you've applied in the past, whether you were funded, whether you were successful or not. That's great. But when it comes to making decisions, like I said before, in terms of all things being equal, if we've got too many potentially fundable applications compared to the amount of money we've got, in terms of prioritizing and making those decisions on which ones to fund, we will prioritize the public use computer facilities. And further than that, it'll be ones we haven't funded in the past, because they'll take priority over venues we have funded in the past and also over the general organisational improvements. The reason for that is the fund, when it set out, was about the public use facilities. Secondly, we funded loads of organisations, which I'll show you in a minute already. So we want to give others a chance. And it's not necessarily just about the organisation, it's about the venue, the place, trying to get more places where people can go to get online. The general connectivity improvements has been introduced in the event that there's a lack of fundable applications around the public access sort of facilities. So it's there as an option, but it is further down the pecking order. But it's not to say they won't be funded. We've funded a couple in the past. And also they make, they do make an impact on things like people being able to use public Wi-Fi where you haven't got space or the wherewithal to have a computer suite or whatever that might be. So just bear that in mind and what you fund them for. I'm not going to ask people individually what your sort of thoughts are, but just be aware of that kind of criteria in the way we're going to apply it. So we'll give out grants of between 2.5 and 10 grand max. There's 150,000 available in this round. So this year we've only got 226. That's compared to we had 1.3 odd million over the last 2 years. So it's a significant reduction. I will be putting our hands up for more money if there's slippage elsewhere in the UKSPF programme this year. I've kind of already put my hand up, to be honest with you. But we'll see how we go in terms of applications for this current round. And if we get a lot more for good fundable things than what we've got money, I'll be going back straight away and going, is there any sign of any slippage? But as it stands at the minute, we've got 226 for the year. We're putting the bulk of it out in this round. You can see which boroughs, because we have to split it a certain funny way according to the UK SPF rules. Um, for example, there's nearly 50 grand in Liverpool, but there's only 11 in Halton. Total of 150 grand. So it's going to be competitive based on the number of applications and things we've had in previous rounds. Obviously, won't be able to fund as many. Hence why we're trying to prioritise new venues, ones we haven't funded in the past. But in some of the previous rounds, like so over the rounds 1 to 5, we struggled to get rid of all the money in St Helens. We originally did in Halton, but that picked up. Knowsley, but that picked up, and Wirral the same. And that's where we were looking at trialing this idea of general connectivity improvements. But we thought we'll just make it equal across the piece now and allow those applications in every borough. So,
Got a
over,
question there by the
yeah,
looks of
go
it,
on.
Stu.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's got a question, Pat?
Goes here.
Ah, Hi, thank you. I was just listening to what you were saying, understanding the idea of connectivity, but we are based at LCVS. We use LCVS internet.
Yeah,
We don't have any impact on it. How we can improve it, and it's not up to us to apply for it. That's the first point.
yeah.
Second, I spoke already last year with LCVS where there will be a possibility of having a digital hub there because there's lots of organizations. So it would be fantastic if you could share that space because the office we have is quite small, so we'll not be able to do computer stations. So one of the things we were thinking of was just maybe applying to be able to purchase iPads because that's possible for us to have a group of people working on iPads during our English classes, nutrition classes. There's few different activities, but
So, yeah, I mean, when I say it hasn't got to be like a formal computer room, computer suite, it can be iPads, whatever, tablets, laptops that you put away and get out and use in a multi-purpose room. If that's what you're getting at, that's not a problem.
all right, that's great. Thank you.
It's also worth bearing in mind that we've funded another organisation in there recently, Pars Community. Um, anyway, I'll come on to that because you know what I mean. We don't really want to be funding loads of things in the same building, but not to say we won't. It's not to say you can't apply, but it could be worth having a conversation with them as well. But you
Okay,
certainly
thank
can
you.
apply for iPads and laptops and tablets and things like that.
Great. Thank you very much, Sue.
Cool. So,
Rich, have you got a question as well?
Hi, everybody. My camera's dodgy. Yeah, it was just to jump in on that and respond to that, Gosha. Maybe we need to have a chat because we could be looking at something that might dovetail with what you're looking for, but we don't want to end up sort of like competing with what you're after as well. So if there's something complementary that we're looking at that kind of fits quite nicely with what you're planning, then let's have a chat outside of today.
lovely. Cheers, Richard. So yeah, won't labour the point, but we dished out 182 grants, over 1.3 million, 161 organisations that actually covered 170 sites. The reason for the difference in the numbers is that some organisations were funded more than once, some of which for the same site, some of which for different sites. Partly in a way, this time we don't want to be funding the same sites. We want newer ones. But we were against the clock to get the money out before the end of March, otherwise we lost it. And the average grant was around about 7 grand. So you can see them there. Don't worry about the level of detail on this. It's just to kind of highlight the massive different range of organisations we funded. It wasn't just a community centre that's got an IT suite. It was all sorts of different things. working with particular areas of focus and activities, and also with all sorts of different target groups. Um, yeah, the majority, in terms of over a third, were kind of community centres, community hubs, but all sorts of different ones. So the point of that is, don't be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not a community centre with an IT suite, or we can't have an IT suite, so it's not for me, because that's not the case. In terms of eligibility, it's grassroots. I call it voluntary sector for short, and voluntary community, faith and social enterprise, not-for-profit organisations who've got a public access base in the city region. Your turnover, well, and income turnover, call it what you want, in the most recent financial year can't have exceeded 1.5 million. And we do need your accounts, which we check. We don't just check the number, we check that you're financially stable and stuff like that as part of our due diligence. So we're not kind of risking the public funding, essentially. You've got to have been in operation for 12 months at least. You've got to be constituted with a government document, which we do get. We look for them online, and we particularly, if you're a community interest company or a company limited by guarantee, we check that you've got your not-for-profit clauses and asset lock clauses in them, because if you haven't, you're not for profit, and we won't fund you. So the biggest one that sticks out is Kicks limited by shares. Often, well, by definition, can pay dividends to shareholders, which isn't eligible in terms of our funding. You've got to have your own bank account so we can pay it into, and it's got to be, the facility's got to be in the city region. And like I say, we check you know, financially stable. And the point of being a going concern is we have had quite a few requests in the past of organisations that were essentially dormant or mothballed. They still exist on Companies House or whatever, but essentially they haven't done anything for ages, you know, years. And we're not looking to fund those organisations because we need to make sure there is an ongoing sort of service being provided and footfall and all the rest of it. It's not like a startup type thing. Um, Gosha, is that right? Have I said your name right?
Yeah, hi. I just thought it's just easier to ask things straight away. When you said about asset lock clauses, I think when we were establishing Merseyside Polonia 16 years ago, that wasn't required, so it's not in our memorandum and articles. But it is company limited by guarantee, so would that be enough with as well charitable objects? So it kind of states that it's all for the benefit of community, but there is no asset lock clause.
Let me think and I'll get back to you. Because that is what we usually check for. The not-for-profit thing is probably the most, it's, in a way, it's easy for me to say. It's the most important, but in a way it isn't. Because what you wouldn't want is, in the event of, you know, a company being wound up, that any assets went to anything other than a non-profit body, which is the point of it, isn't it? But let me think, and because I don't want to exclude people because of some historic technicality, but I just need to make sure that I'm not stepping outside the rules.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Um, so our definition of voluntary community-based social enterprise is what you'd expect. It can be a constituted voluntary community group, social enterprise. It's not for profit, registered charity, CIO, CIC, company limited by guarantee. I've already mentioned about companies limited by shares. If you are one of them and you intend to apply, get in touch to make sure you don't waste your time in the event that you're not eligible. Got any queries, give us a shout. In terms of who's not eligible, what we've kind of just mentioned about any organisation that allows profits or dividends to be paid to the shareholders or directors or whoever. Can't fund individuals that don't represent a group, or organisations where people in control is just one family, you know, which you do come across. There needs to be different directors. It's not like a family business, even if it's under the guise of a not-for-profit. Can't fund statutory organisations, housing associations, private companies limited by shares, other organisations who are making grants themselves for the political groups. Um, don't want to glaze over too much. There's a box on the form you have to tick to confirm you haven't had government subsidies in the last 3 years exceeding 315 grand. Used to be called state aid when we were in Europe, and it's all about competition laws that the state, if you like, can't distort competition by funding one organisation more than another, and then it sends you to sleep, the guidance on it. But it's now called subsidy control, and there's different exemptions within it, and one of them is called minimum financial assistance. So basically, you're allowed up to 315 grand in public subsidies in the last 3 years. The last 3 years means this current one and the two preceding. I'm not the state aid police. I don't go and check. I have no way of checking. You just need to confirm on the application form that you haven't, just to make you aware. If you're unsure, try and find out off somebody that knows. You could read the guidance, but you might well fall asleep. But really, people who funded you in the past where it is a government subsidy should have issued you with a letter to say it is a government subsidy. Or it may have said so in your grant agreement or your funding agreement or whatever. We haven't had anyone yet, I don't think, who has. But, if you've had a big grant, government grant to fund a building, or when it was relevant was in COVID, when people were getting loads of different sort of loans and things and grants for things, they counted towards them. So it shouldn't be a big issue, but we do have to check that. Another thing that, because it's government funding, we have to make sure there's good value for money and we comply with basically national procurement rules. So whilst you may not normally have to do certain things because of the nature of your organisation or whatever, in this, with the funding, as a minimum, you shouldn't really need to do more. You'd need to get 3 quotes, right? It's the safest way of doing it. This all comes with my sort of caveat of I'm not a professional procurement expert, so it's not advice. But, we know really from years of doing this stuff that what the rules are and the threshold. If you spend under 25 grand, basically you need to get 3 quotes. It could be online price comparisons, but you need to keep the evidence in the event of anyone ever auditing you. Probably unlikely, but it is possible. But aside from all that, if you shop around and get different quotes, you'll get a better offer. Simple as that. You'll get better prices. Um, don't just go online and go Curry's, AO, PC World. You can do that if you want to scope it out. Our advice is get some advice off an IT company, an IT professional, and get some proper quotes. Because that way you'll get more appropriate kit. You might not have a clue, and you just go on a little shopping spree online sort of thing. Oh yeah, I want one of them, one of them, one of them. Or you may think you know a lot about it, but you might not know as much as you think you know. So take some advice. But anyway, with regard to procurement, make sure you get quotes, make sure you keep them. We advise, as part of the application, get the quotes before you put your application in, because then we'll have more confidence that you've priced it up properly. And if you do what I'm strongly suggesting of getting some advice, we'll have more, what's the word? I think I've lost my words now. We'll feel like you've better planned it than if we can tell usually just by looking at it, where bang bang, Curry's, PC World, whatever, 6 laptops, 3 computers, and a few keyboards. There's more to it than that. Anyway, get quotes. So what you can spend your money on, right? So I'm splitting this into 2 sections, and I'll try not to bore you to death, but there is quite a distinction between what we can fund for the public access computer facilities and what we can fund for the general sort of organizational improvements, which is basically a lot more restrictive than the public use stuff. So there's an FAQs document that will go online that has more detail, including really specific questions that people have asked in the past. But these are the general ones. So we can fund the broadband, but it's got to be new or improved. We can't just fund, we can fund it for up to 2 years, but we can't just fund 2 years of an existing broadband package you've got, whether it's a new contract of the same level of service, if you want to call it that, or whatever. It needs to be either, if you haven't got broadband, you need a new line, or you want to switch provider to get a better service, or you might keep the same provider but upgrade to a better package because the current one you've got is dead slow. We can fund that, but we can't fund existing sort of continuation costs, if you want to call it that. We can fund computers, and like we touched upon before with that question, different types of computers. It hasn't got to be a fixed PC. Um, you know, you might have one particular type, you might have a mixture depending on the space you've got and how you want to use them, how people want to use them, and and making the most of the budget. Um, so one of the things you need to do, and touching on the application sort of advice in a bit, is think about what it is you want to do. What are you trying to achieve? Who's going to be using them? What for? Where? What kind of space you got? And then look at getting the appropriate stuff. We can fund the necessary sort of software and licenses you need. So the operating systems might be Windows, different if it's Apple. Um, Office, Word, Excel, that kind of stuff, antivirus. So we can fund the standard sort of ones. Um, we potentially can fund other things, but they need to be really well justified in your application. So some people, like I say, just go on a shopping spree and go, I want Adobe Editor and I want this funky design package and I want Sage and I want God knows what. Can't fund that. If there was a really good reason as to why you needed a particular thing in relation to the public use aspect, great, explain it. And if it's accepted, we could fund it. But if it's not, or it's not explained, we wouldn't. We can fund a license for up to 3 years. If it's paid for up front, we can't kind of just give funding to pay for the things year on year on year. So you might buy a software license for a year or 2 years, but a maximum of 3. But we won't pay where you're just paying for year one and then you renew it and then you renew it, because we have no idea of whether it is renewed in future years. All the different kinds of equipment you might need, within reason. So obviously you might need a broadband router. Well, you probably will, because we insist that people get for the public access what's called a a broadband a router with web content filtering, which basically restricts sites that people can go on so they don't come to any harm or bring your organization into any harm or disrepute. So you might need routers, you might need Wi-Fi stuff to make the internet signal essentially go around the building better. Monitors, mice, keyboards, all those sort of things you might think of. Printers, but they need to be proportionate to what you're doing and sort of not over the top in terms of price. So again, we've had people like wanting, oh yeah, this absolutely amazing LaserJet color, all singing, all dancing printer with scanning and photocopying, and it's 1,500 quid. We're not going to fund it. Really, what you want to be looking at is what you need for the room, and just for the sake of you, when you're the ongoing costs, black and white printers are well better because they're just so much cheaper to run. But anyway, so yeah, printers, it's got to be sort of proportionate, and all those other sort of things. And it also includes you could security measures. So we funded lots of organisations who've had storage lockers, and those charging cabinets to put your laptops or tablets in, or things to actually secure computers to the desk or in place so they don't get nicked and stuff. We can fund the costs of an IT professional setting the things up and installing them for you. Um, if you haven't got your own sort of IT person in house, and we insist that the things are set up and installed by someone who knows what they're doing, because otherwise they'll just end up going wrong and breaking and whatever. So we can pay for them, but we can't pay for the ongoing sort of contract IT support costs. Can pay for office IT furniture. Again, it's got to be proportionate, justified, and like not over the top in terms of expense. Um, why is my thing not moving on? No, there you go. So what we can't fund is ongoing IT support costs. It's amazing how many people still put them in, even though we say we can't. Can't fund capital building works of any kind. No staff costs or overheads whatsoever. It's not about that. It's about the connectivity and the kit. No training costs. even if you need staff to become proficient in use of new stuff, that's up to you as the organisation. Um, and it can't fund the delivery of training and activities using the computers or otherwise. It's about the kit and the connectivity. So all those things we can't fund. Um, it can't just be stuff that's aimed at. So we've had applications in the past, and this has come from the combined authority rather than us. They don't just want to fund big gaming rooms with dead expensive gaming PCs for. Can someone mute themselves there, please? For recreational activities, we can't fund stuff that you lend out to participants. It's about the computers being at your place and being used. They can be used for outreach, but they do need to have a primary venue stroke location where it's based at, it's used at for the majority of the time. This isn't a flexibility we introduced quite a long time ago, because originally we just said no to outreach stuff, but we said, all right, you can, but it does need to have, basically it needs something for us to hang our funding hat on, because we have to identify the venue, the postcode that has, improved users or improved connectivity or whatever. So just be aware that if you apply and just say, look, we're getting it and we're taking it out everywhere and anywhere, and we haven't got our own place, you won't be funded. So this is now looking at the general connectivity improvements. So very similar, we can fund the broadband, all the things I said before. We can fund network infrastructure, like I said before, routers, network, cabling, all that stuff. We can fund computers. However, they can only be funded as part of an application for broadband or connectivity improvements. We won't just, if you said, I want 10 new computers for my staff, your application will just get binned. And even if you do apply for computers alongside the connectivity improvements, you need to really justify why you need them, and it needs to be modest. It's not just an exercise of updating organizations' computer hardware. Basically, it's about improving the connectivity. But we do understand that in improving the connectivity, the internet, the broadband speeds, if you've got really knackered old computers, you might need some new ones to actually get the benefit out of the improved broadband. So please bear that in mind so you wouldn't waste your time. Um, we can fund software licenses, but more restricted. The real basics, the operating system, Office, antivirus, internet security, that's it. Nothing else. No sort of particular packages you need for your finance manager or whoever does the publicity. Nothing else like that. We won't fund it for this. Similarly with the accessories, really basic. We can fund the monitors, the keyboards, the mice, the headsets. We won't fund anything else. We can fund the setup costs again, but they've got to be reasonable and whatnot. Um, before you got told you've been successful before you get your grant. Can't fund ongoing IT costs. Can't fund blah blah. Capital Works, PCs. What I said before, specialist software just not happening. And we've had several applications asking for CRMs, HR, finance systems, God knows what. We can't fund them. Um, and equally, we can't fund wider digital equipment, tellies, scanners, photocopiers, anything like that. Or office furniture. Just we're not funding that for the general improvements. The only furniture that is eligible is if you are setting up a public access computer suite. And the same things can't fund staff costs, volunteer costs, training, or organizational overheads. So they kind of look similar, but hopefully you get the point that the general connectivity improvements are a lot more restricted than the public access computer suite applications. If you intended to apply for a bit of both, you'd have to fill in both sections of the form. So section C, I'll come on to in a minute, is the one for the public access stuff. Section D is the one for the internal sort of what you call it, organizational general improvements. It's getting launched today. Deadline for any questions is Monday the 30th. Deadline for applications is Monday the 9th. We'll follow up with people because there's always questions and do our due diligence the following week. And then they'll get assessed, they'll get moderated, and the steering group will make the decisions by the end of July, 1st of August. And the first week in August, we'll let people know. Then, as soon as you've sorted out the pre-grant conditions, and there's always some for everyone, because some of them are standard ones, we'll issue your grant agreement and we'll give you your money. And then you need to spend it within 3 months, or at the absolute latest, the end of November. How are we doing for time? But we're miles behind, are we? 22, maybe not so bad. So now we're going to touch on the application process and the timescales. Just told you the timescales. The I'll look at, you know what I was rushing to, I'll update this. They'll be on our website by last year. So I'll update that. They're on the website by the end of the day today. There's an application form, guidance, FAQs. There's some data which is on a plate for you around digital inclusion and deprivation. And then later this week, I'll put on one of the videos of either this briefing session or tomorrow's one or the one I'm doing on Friday. There's one on Monday. In case anyone leaves before the end, 1 o'clock on Monday. I think it's the last slide in here. We've got a technical tips session where this IT guy, a local IT company, gets you to really think about what it is you need and what you want to do, do's and don'ts and all that. Really, really helpful. People who go to it put in better applications and stand a better chance of being funded and actually set up better things that cause you less of a headache and don't cost you as much money in the long run. Can't emphasize enough how important it is to come along to that. It'd be like an hour and a quarter, and then go and get some advice off a local IT company, because it'll just make all the world of difference. So anyway, those slides and videos will go online, and that's where you send your applications with the documents we need. So what we'll go through now is what supporting documents we do need, some of the key things you need to have in place, and then the different sort of sections: value for money, demonstrating need, outputs and outcomes, publicity, and accessibility and opening times. So what we'll need your latest accounts. There's some exemptions, and if you haven't been in existence or you've only just been in existence for 12 months and you haven't got any, let us know, because we will want to see something. And we need to check that what you're going to let us know is acceptable. And we'll need your latest annual report. Often they may be one and the same thing, but it depends on what kind of organizational status you've got. And if you're not required to have an annual report or you haven't got one, we will want something, because we want to know what you do and what you've been doing to, like I say, make sure that you're going concern, you're doing good stuff with the right kind of people. So each of the following slides have, B9, dead clear in the application. So like section A is, I think it's just your contact details, so who's putting the application in and a secondary contact. Then section B is a bit of information about your organisation. So, when were you founded? What's your organisational status? What are your registration numbers? A little paragraph about what you do, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And then it comes to B9, which says, right, you need to have certain things in place. I need to reorder this now because of the difference between the public access and the general connectivity. So whatever you're applying for, whether it's public access or general connectivity improvements, you need your relevant insurances in place. If for both of them, both public access and general connectivity improvements, you do need to have an environmental sustainability statement. I'm not asking you to develop some massive policy if you haven't already got one. We do have a very simple one-page statement that is relevant to what we're funding you to do. Hopefully you will have something more, developed and wider ranging than that, but it depends on the size of your organisation and all that kind of stuff. But basically, we need to make sure that you're not just going to lash all your old computers in a skip or whatever. You need to get rid of them responsibly. They call it waste electronic and electrical equipment regulations or something. With about 4 E's in it. But we've got a statement, if you haven't got one, that you can adopt but everyone needs one of them. If you're looking to develop public access computer facilities, you also need to confirm that you have relevant policies in place, so health and safety risk assessment, internet security, data protection, and safeguarding. We don't ask to see copies of those. You need to confirm in the application whether, yeah, we've got it, or no, we haven't, but we will have it before you fund us. Um, Everyone should have health and safety stuff. End of. Same with data protection and safeguarding. You may need to look at your safeguarding policy to make sure it makes reference to keeping people safe online. The one that people have the least, which makes sense if you haven't had a computer facility in the past, is the internet security policy. And that basically outlines your responsibility and the actions that you take to keep people safe online, and what their responsibilities are in terms of what they do online using your computers. We also have a template for that, which you can adopt and adapt and do what you want with, but you might already have one. And if you haven't got them, we'll ask you for them. And if you say you haven't got them, then we'll happily share one. And you can find loads of examples online now, but we can help you out with them. If you're struggling with any of the other policies, speak to your local CVS. For example, Richard's on from LCVS, and obviously there's equivalents in every other borough. If you don't have them in place before you apply, so you don't tick the box to say, yeah, we've got them, it is a condition of grant that before we give you the money, that you've developed them. In value for money, section C4, this is really important, and it relates to what I've said about getting advice and planning your project properly. We want to know that what you've done, or what you're planning to do, should I say, is fit for purpose and it provides good value for money. If I look at an application, and I've looked at hundreds of them, and it's got, I want 5 laptops, um, or quite a common one is I want loads of great iPads, and because they want to go for the more expensive options, say. Not to say you can't go for those, but I want 10 state-of-the-art iPads, full stop. I know it's not been looked into in any detail. Um, Probably not necessarily good value for money because they've just gone online and looked on Currys and gone, that's 1,500 quid. Um, this is your um, opportunity to explain to us that we're really thinking about this. We've looked into this. We've taken some advice. Um, the technical tips briefing has said, come to it. It'll just like open your eyes, might make them glaze over a little bit, but will really help in terms of planning your project and being able to answer this question to give us assurance that you've really planned it well. If you take advice, which I hope you do, just say it. We're not asking for you to be a technical expert in your application and give it all of that. It's just dead simple. Look, we've got a company in. We've thought about who's going to use it, where they're using it, what they're using it for. And the best solution we think is X. Then what we've done is we've got a number of quotes for the different kind of stuff. We've been told we need to upgrade our broadband because it's dead slow. Take a broadband speed and put it in. Say, it's only 20 megabits per second or something, which is dead slow. Blah, blah, blah. We've done this, we've done that, we've done the other, and this is what we're coming up with. And then obviously you have to put your costs in, but you put your costs in before that. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for sort of like a technical, who's the best technical expert competition. We're just looking to see that you've really looked into it and tried to get the best option. You don't always have to get the cheapest thing. In fact, we have got back to applicants in the past and said, do you know what? You've proposed to get 10 laptops for 150 quid. They're going to be absolutely rubbish. Look at it again. Do you know what I mean? Because they're just going to break straight away. Because there's laptops and there's laptops. It's like anything, isn't it? You get what you pay for. So what I'm kind of saying is, don't be too greedy in terms of you want the Rolls Royce, but equally don't go for the whatever the cheapest car is these days, because they won't last. There's a map. I won't go on it now, but click on the link. All of the facilities that we've funded in the past are on the map, along with other ones that we haven't funded. There's all sorts of places. The point of this is have a look and see what's in your area. because you need to demonstrate the need. So after the fitness for purpose and value for money section, the next question is around what's the need? Tell us how you know there's a need. Now, if you say, right, um, I'm applying in, let me just pick an area where there's loads of stuff. Uh, in Bootle, the middle of Bootle. Again, not to say we run fun stuff, but there is a lot of stuff around there that's been funded in the past. If you're working with a particular target group and you say, look, they won't go there because of X, Y, and Z, they can't go there, whatever the restrictions are, um, say so. Because if you were to just kind of apply and not make any reference, and we know there's loads of stuff around there, you're probably not going to get funded. Um, but it'll be interesting for you to see what is around your sort of area. And what you'll see, there's different types. There's ones that are called open access, like I said, where anyone can go. But some of them, it'll say restricted. And that, so it might just be for a particular organisation that works with young men with mental health conditions. So that's their thing. You know, no, people can't just rock up to go there. Um, but if they become engaged in the organisation and the services, they can. So have a look and see. It may support your application. It may make you rethink what you need to do because there's a lot of stuff there already, or at least it'll give you some sort of insight as to, hold on, there's a lot of stuff around there. I really need to think about how I'm going to be able to demonstrate why there is a need for us to have this in our area. So I'm not going to go on it now, but it's quite useful and you can toggle around and look and see what's there. The I'll send these slides out so you'll have the link, and we'll probably put the link on the website as well. Don't worry about where these are listed. Ones that just jump out from the map and things is there's not a lot of stuff in certain areas. However, since this slide, which I could do with updating, there's still not a lot there, but we have funded things in those areas in recent rounds. And we've got more in uh, North Sefton, North Southport, still not a lot there. Seacombe, we funded something there, but there's not a lot. But it doesn't mean we won't fund things in other, we'll only fund things in those areas. We'll fund things, we'll consider anything in any area. But you need to demonstrate the need. It mentions here about being, more affluent areas and stuff. I'm not saying we won't fund things in better off places, but there needs to be a need, and if there was a need for really deprived, digitally excluded area compared to a much more affluent, digitally included area, then there's only one winner really, isn't there? So, yeah, have a look at the map. Make sure you use your local knowledge as to why there's a need. The spreadsheet that'll be on there just has a tab for each borough. It has the ward, and then it says, you know, how digitally excluded is it? One means the most excluded. It's an indicator around the older people, because often older people are more digitally excluded, but it's not the be all and end all. What the broadband's like, and then the indices of multiple deprivations. You just look at your ward, and if it kind of really backs up, we're working in a really deprived area that's badly digitally excluded, say it. It's just dead simple, isn't it? It's on a plate for you. If it says you're working in a more affluent area that's really not digitally excluded, then you need to think about what your case is for the need. Um, who you're catering for. It might be a real specific target group who just are not going to engage in sort of general open sort of facilities and stuff. If that's the case, say so. So the three sort of elements in terms of demonstrating the need is like we said, you can. I'll have to touch on the other one quickly, the general connectivity, because different section of the form. But if you're upgrading it, we won't know if you've got an existing suite and you want to upgrade it, unless you tell us why it needs upgrading. We're not going to know, are we? So just dead simple. How old is it? We bought it 10 years ago. Half of them are broken. They're dead slow. The internet speed's like 10 megabits per second, which is painfully slow. We've Our users constantly telling us it's rubbish. Take a straw poll if you haven't got sort of user sort of feedback data. Same with increasing capacity. We've got an existing suite, but you know what? We've got 5 computers and they're fully booked out all the time, and we're having to restrict the amount of time people are going on them so we could do with another three or four or whatever it is. Tell us in dead simple terms. Um, User feedback's always really good because it kind of it's telling us what people are really saying. If it's a brand new thing, again, we need to know what's the data, what's the intelligence, why is the one needed there? Have you got any consultation with your users or your community to say, look, there's nowhere to get online around here? Tell us. Um, then sort of tell us about what it's going to achieve. What's going to be the impact for your organization, for the people you work with, and for the wider community? Just say it in dead simple terms, you know. Tell us what it's going to make a difference. Um, Tell us how you're going to measure the impact of it. Certain things we say as an absolute minimum, but again, it shines through in applications where people do monitor things more vigorously to kind of assess their impact. We won't come chasing you for it, and you haven't got to make it overcomplicated and don't say things you don't do. But as a minimum, say, look, we'll do all the things you said we got to do, but also we do this, this, and this. Just answer the exam question. And then I think it's the final one. It's like, there's two more. How are you going to let people know about it? That important, particularly if you're setting up a new thing or you're increasing capacity, to let people know that it's there to be able to use it. Um, if it's for particular target groups, well, how are you going to target them? Um, and don't just say we're going to put it on our socials because, yeah, you might do, but there needs to be a little bit more of a thought, hopefully, to it than that because often you're trying to help people get online who aren't online, aren't they? So it doesn't always work doing it through socials. And then we just want to know about, well, when are you planning to have it open? Because this is part of the value for money thing, is if you're going to say it's only going to be open 2 hours a week on a Friday afternoon, and we've got equally good applications where they're going to be open 4 days a week, morning and afternoon, then that will be taken into consideration. Doesn't have to be open all the time, but we need to get a handle on. You're asking for £6,000 for something that's going to be open 1 hour a week. Is that good value for money? Probably not. Um, and also, hopefully no one's going to charge for it, but those kind of things, and is it accessible if in terms of kind of disability accessibility? Um, but again, you're working with, you don't have to kind of answer to us in that respect, but we wouldn't expect places to not to be accessible. But also the accessibility in terms of when they're open. What we need, I'll come to the general connectivity because I can do that really quick in a minute, the application bit for that. So before anyone got a grant, we would want a baseline of the typical number of weekly users you currently have. Um, Again, we're not asking for registers and all that, but it does need to be founded on something. Um, what's the word? Scientific's probably not the word, but you know what I mean. It's not just a random number generation thing. We only need that for the public access stuff. We'll ask you for a few photos of what it's like before. Um, and then when you set it up, we'll ask you for some after. We will definitely want confirmation of your current broadband speed, where you've improved for applied for connectivity improvements. There's some sites there, just click on them, just measure them, dead easy. Take a screenshot, keep it. Great to do it as part of your application if you're applying for connectivity improvements or broadband, because it's there in black and white. Our broadband is dead slow. It's 10 megabits per second or something. Great. Um, but we'll want them before, we want them after, because one of our outcome measures is improved broadband speeds. That is our key outcome measure. The thing about the numbers before and the numbers after of users, another one of our key outcomes is around increased numbers of users of digital facilities. For some reason, they ask us for photographs. No one's ever asked for them, but anyway, we've got to get them. We'll come out and see you at some point. Money's got to be spent. Things got to be set up and in use within 3 months of us giving you the money. And there's no flexibility on this unless something absolutely out of the ordinary happens, which we need to know beforehand. We will need evidence of what you've bought, so we'll need invoices, receipts. We're not asking for bank statements, which we did in round one, but it was a nightmare. But you do need to keep your quotes and your bank statements in the event that one of the external people ordered to us. So Pat and Jack, who's in our team, will be chasing it up for them as soon as possible once you've spent your money. And like I say, we'll ask you for numbers afterwards. And then sort of early next year, we'll ask you to dead short report of what's it done for you and link it back to what your intended impact was in your bid. You can give as much or as little to an extent as you want to in that. Some people give us brilliant reports with loads of data. Others just give us a short 1-2 pager, dead simple. It's done this, this, and this. We've got a dead simple template for it. If you can give us any case studies, brilliant. But they're not mandatory. We do evaluate it, and then they evaluate it, the funders. So you might get contacted about that, but it's nothing onerous. They might just want to have a chat with you. And like I said, this technical hints and tips thing next Monday, 1 o'clock. The link's on here, shows that when we put the slides online today, you can get it. But really, we want you to register, which you'll have seen the link on it because you've registered on this. So you must have got the original email. There's also a link to register for the technical tips one. Can't emphasize enough how important that is. So I know I'll rattle through that because I've got to get off our Zoom because someone else is using it. Well, from 1 o'clock, but I said it might be a couple of minutes late for another meeting. But just what I want to very quickly do, if I may, is so section C is of the application form is for public access applications, public access computer suite applications. Section D is for the general connectivity improvements. So section A and B, everyone fills in. C, if you're applying for public access stuff. D, if you're applying for general connectivity improvements. If you're applying for a bit of both, you need to fill in C and D because we need to look at the costs for different things. And then section E is just a declaration. So very quickly, because it's not massively different, like I say, but some of it is. Let me just flick through to and I'll add these slides in to the other one shortly. Just didn't get a chance before. So section D, like I say, A and B, everyone does. Forget C if you're just doing the general connectivity stuff. It's a lot easier because we're not looking at all that. How are you going to do? Why is there a need for a public IT suite? Etc. 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 But you still need to explain the process you've undertaken to show that it's fit for purpose and value for money. All of those same things apply, but in a different sort of context of, our broadband is terrible. We've done a speed test. We've got an IT person out who's said, yeah, you really need to upgrade that. And also, by the way, all your internal networking is rubbish. You need to get some Wi-Fi access points and da-da-da. We've taken the advice and they suggested this is what we do because the internet comes in the front reception and it's not too bad there. But all the offices around the back or the room, again, there's still a kind of how can I put it, a focus on the public because remember, it's a community venue. But the rooms that everyone uses for their activities around the back of the building, and basically the Wi-Fi we've got in here is rubbish and it's kind of non-existent around the back. So we need to put in some Wi-Fi extenders or Wi-Fi access points. So just explain that, same as what you did before. Get your quotes, say that you have and shop around. Why do you need it? Well, why do you need it? I mean, it's kind of like an open people will see it as an open door. Great, I'll just update all my computers. But like I said, it's kind of down the pecking order in terms of our funding priorities. But you really need to explain to us why do you need it? Because we've got loads of people who use our centre who can't get online. If we can sort the internet and the Wi-Fi out, they'll be able to get free Wi-Fi because they struggle with paying for data. It may enable us to deliver more online services to people and get people to access online counselling. I don't know, there's any amount of different things, enable us to do more of our service delivery online. It'll do this, it'll do that. So think about the impact, particularly on what you do for people, as well as, well, it'll be better for our staff because they're sick of having rubbish computers. So you need to really kind of explain that. And like I've said, the emphasis is on the connectivity, The computers are a kind of an add-on and need to be quite modest in number. What will the impact be? Will it improve your efficiency? Will it enable you to support more people? Will it, like you said, get you to be able to deliver stuff online? Who is it you work with? Will they be able to get free Wi-Fi? All those kind of things. And then measuring the impact. Well, all you need to do is the minimum requirements, really, of what we've said. You will need some photos and broadband speeds and evidence of spend and stuff, and a little report at the end. So it is easier, really, that sort of section if you're applying for that kind of stuff. But like I say, it's further down the pecking order. So I know I've talked a lot. I've talked very quickly, but you can get the slides online. They'll be later this week. All of the other documents will be online by the end of today, which will be the application form. There's application guidance, which covers in a bit more detail than what I rattled through. If fill it in like this. This will give you the good answer. It's like if you actually read it and follow it, you can't fail to put in a good application. But it's surprising how many people don't read it and don't follow it and put in really poor applications. There's an FAQs document, which tells you pretty much everything and anything you could want to know about it. So please look at those before just emailing us and saying, "Oh, can I do this? Can I do that?" Have a look in those first. Yeah, and if you're interested, good luck. So very quickly before we end, has anybody got any questions, comments, or observations, whatever that they want to shout out now? Is everyone still awake? That's a no. Is anyone still alive? Oh, Rich's got a thumb up. Rich is still alive.
Just taking it all in.
Good stuff. Is anyone, is it useful? Like I say, a lot of information to take in, but it's actually, if you just sit down, take your time, don't leave it late, take some advice, think about what you need to do. If you haven't got evidence from service users as to why you need stuff, do a little straw poll. Honestly, we're not asking for rocket science with it all. It's just about, is there a need? Have you thought it through? Is it fit for purpose and good value for money? And is it going to make an impact? Working with the right kind of people and hopefully in the right kind of areas. You just need to explain that because we don't know. We can't make any assumptions. Joe?
Will this recording of this has been so helpful, will this be on the website as well?
Yeah, we'll stick it on, yeah. This one I think's gone all right. We
Fantastic.
usually try and pick the better one, but I don't know. I'll see how fast I sound on this one, and I might put this one or the next one, we'll see. But it'll all cover the same stuff. Are people interested in applying, or have I put you off? Okay. Keeping the cards close to the chest. All right, okay, Joe.
Oh no, I'll just to answer your question, but I couldn't get my hand up in time. I'm not very good with these technical things. I'm digitally excluded.
Fair enough.
No, I think it's been really, really interesting. I think from my point of view, I'm one of the neighbourhood managers from Liverpool City Council, so it's kind of how I now get the word out within my neighbourhood. But having the opportunity to kind of look at the data and see where my wards fall within the areas of need as well,
Yeah.
just to support those groups. Because I mean, if you're getting it to the right people, they're going to be the ones that are going to find it hardest to do all the online participation and stuff. So
Yeah. Sound, yeah. Have a look
really
at
good.
and have a look at the data for your wards, but have a look at the map and speak to LCVS because we might have funded some, we might not, we might have funded loads, we might not. But yeah, great. If you can help get the word out and provide support, that'd be brilliant. Right.
Can I
I'm
just
gonna
ask a question before you finish? Sorry.
yeah, come on,
You,
Vicky.
you know the one that you've got on Monday. I can't actually attend that, but will it be videoed the same as this so we can
Yeah,
get it? Is that
yeah.
okay? Yeah.
Slides and the video go online, yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. Okie doke. Right. Thank you very much for attending, for your time. Sorry we've gone a bit over. hopefully it was useful, and good luck if you apply. Don't leave it too late. Take your advice and come on Monday. So thanks very much. Will you turn the recording off, please, Pat?